Before you clicked this video, heaven was already whispering your name. Yes, you. You've been wondering why life has felt heavier lately, why doors closed without warning, why people walked away without explanation, why your heart feels stretched between pain and purpose. You thought you were losing things, but what if you were being separated? Because there is a love story being written over your life right now, and it is not ordinary. It is not safe, it is not comfortable, and it will not stay hidden much longer. The battles you fought in silence were never meaningless. The nights you cried when no one called were never unseen. Every delay, every betrayal, every lonely moment was preparation. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not crazy for feeling different. You were being protected for something sacred. And what God is about to reveal will shock the world. You remember the moments they said no, the silence after the opportunities disappeared, the conversations that ended with polite smiles but closed doors, the relationships that slowly slipped through your fingers without explanation. You called it rejection. You questioned your worth. You replayed every mistake. You asked yourself, what is wrong with me? But listen carefully. What you felt as rejection was me changing your direction. I saw what you could not see. I heard conversations you were never meant to hear. I knew the environments that would have drained your spirit, diluted your calling, and distracted your destiny. You begged to stay in places that would have slowly erased who you are becoming. So I said no, even when it broke your heart. Every closed door felt personal to you. But to me, it was protection, it was mercy, it was redirection wrapped in disappointment. You thought you were being pushed away, but you were being pulled aside, because the path you kept trying to walk was too small for the life I designed for you. You cried when they chose someone else. You grieved when the invitation never came. You felt invisible when your efforts went unnoticed. Yet every time you were overlooked, I was rewriting your route. You were not rejected because you were unworthy. You were rejected because you were misplaced. You kept asking for acceptance in rooms that could never recognize what I put inside you. How could they celebrate a calling they didn't understand? How could they nurture a destiny they didn't carry? How could they make space for a future they were never meant to be part of? There, no, was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of your alignment. I needed you free from expectations that were never mine, free from labels that were never yours, free from environments that would have convinced you to shrink. So I allowed the rejection, not to break you, but to move you, not to shame you, but to position you. Every door that closed behind you narrowed the path ahead, and that path leads somewhere intentional. You thought you were losing people. You thought you were losing chances. You thought you were losing time. But you were losing distractions. Because where I am taking you, approval will not be required. Permission will not be needed. And the very rejection that once made you question everything will become the evidence that I was guiding every step. You were never being pushed out. You were being led forward. You keep asking why life feels harder than it should. Why simple things turn into exhausting battles. Why peace feels temporary and pressure feels constant. You blamed bad timing, bad luck, bad people. But deep down you sensed something deeper, because the battles you face are not accidental. They are spiritual. You thought you were just tired, but your spirit has been fighting wars your eyes cannot see. Have you noticed how the attacks often come right before progress, right before clarity, right before you step into something new? That is not coincidence. That is resistance. You wondered why discouragement arrives in waves, why doubt whispers the loudest at night, why fear shows up when you finally feel ready to move forward. It is because your life carries weight, your purpose carries consequence, and your destiny disrupts things that prefer darkness. You thought you were weak for feeling overwhelmed, but you were sensing the pressure of a spiritual battle. The enemy does not waste energy on empty lives. He studies movement. He reacts to growth. he targets momentum. And you have been moving closer than you realize. Think about the moments you almost gave up. The moments when everything felt confusing at once, when doors closed, relationships shifted, and your confidence trembled. It felt like chaos. But it was confrontation, because every step forward you take threatens forces that hoped you would stay asleep, distracted, or defeated. So the battle intensified, not to destroy you, but to distract you, to make you question your identity, to make you doubt your direction, to make you abandon the path before you see where it leads. And for a moment you almost did. You asked yourself if it was worth the fight, if the pressure meant you were going the wrong way. But pressure does not always mean stop. Sometimes it means breakthrough is near. Storms do not chase people who are standing still. They chase movement, and you have been moving. Even when you felt stuck, even when progress felt invisible, even when your faith felt fragile, you were still advancing. That is why the battle feels relentless. Because what is ahead of you is not small, it is not ordinary, and it cannot be reached without resistance. So do not mistake the warfare for abandonment. Do not confuse the struggle with failure. The fight around you is proof of the calling within you. You are not under attack by accident. You are under pressure because you are approaching purpose. You remember when the noise faded, when the invitations slowed down, when the messages stopped coming, when the circle you once leaned on grew smaller and smaller, until it felt like it disappeared. You called it loneliness. You called it abandonment. You called it punishment. But I called it preparation. Isolation was never meant to break you. It was meant to reveal you. Because when your life was crowded, your spirit was quiet. You were surrounded by voices, expectations, opinions, and noise. So much noise that you could not hear mine clearly. You asked me for direction while drowning in distraction. You asked me for clarity while clinging to comfort. So I did what love sometimes requires. I made the room quiet. Not to hurt you, not to shame you, but to teach you. You thought people were leaving because something was wrong with you. You wondered if you had become too much or not enough. You questioned your value every time another connection faded. But the truth is this: some people could not go where you are going, and if they stayed, you would have stayed too. You did not lose your circle, you outgrew it, and growth often sounds like silence. In the quiet, you met parts of yourself you never noticed before. The fears you avoided, the wounds you buried, the dreams you were too busy to acknowledge. In the quiet, you faced your thoughts without distraction. You faced your doubts without applause. You faced your identity without the comfort of validation. And it was uncomfortable. Some nights felt endless. Some mornings felt heavy. You wondered why life suddenly felt so still when you had prayed for movement. But stillness is not stagnation. Stillness is instruction. Because I needed your attention before I gave you elevation. There are lessons that cannot be learned in crowds, strength that cannot be built in comfort, confidence that cannot grow in constant approval. You needed to know my voice without the echo of others. You needed to trust my guidance without the reassurance of the familiar. You needed to stand without leaning. Isolation was the classroom where you discovered who you are without performance, where you learned to sit with your own thoughts, to confront your own insecurities, to rebuild your identity from the inside out. You stopped pretending, you stopped performing, you stopped chasing validation. And slowly, quietly, you began becoming. You learned how strong you are when no one is watching, how resilient you are when no one is clapping, how faithful you are when no one is reminding you to be. You thought you were being hidden because you were forgotten, but you were being hidden because you were being formed. Seeds grow underground before the world sees the garden, and you were growing roots. Roots deep enough to carry the weight of where you are going. Roots strong enough to survive the storms ahead. So do not resent the quiet seasons. Do not mourn the empty rooms. The classroom is closing, and the world is about to meet the version of you that was built in the silence. You still remember the moment everything cracked. The day life stopped feeling predictable. The season when pressure didn't visit, it moved in. The chapter where pain stopped knocking and started living in your thoughts. You thought you were breaking. You whispered it in quiet moments, "I can't handle this." You felt it in your chest when the weight returned every morning. You saw it in the mirror when the person staring back looked tired in ways sleep could not fix. You believed the pressure meant the end of something, but it was the beginning of you. What tried to break you was sent to reveal you, because before the pressure came, you had no idea how strong you were. Before the storm arrived, you had never tested your roots. Before the fire surrounded you, you had never seen what in you could not burn. You thought your strength lived in comfort, in stability, in plans that made sense, but strength does not grow in ease, it grows in resistance, and resistance found you. It came disguised as betrayal, as loss, as unexpected endings, as doors closing at the worst possible time, as prayers that seemed to echo without answers. You asked, "Why is this happening to me?" But the real question was, who is this forming inside me? Every challenge stripped away a layer you thought you needed. Every disappointment removed a version of you that could not carry your future. Every heartbreak carved space inside your heart for a deeper purpose. You thought you were losing pieces of yourself, but you were shedding limitations. Pressure exposes what comfort hides. It reveals what applause never could. It introduces you to parts of your spirit you never knew existed. You discovered courage when fear was loud. You discovered faith when certainty disappeared. You discovered endurance when quitting felt reasonable. You kept standing when falling felt easier. You kept moving when stopping felt justified. You kept believing when doubt felt logical. And you did not even realize what you were becoming. You thought survival was the victory, but transformation was the mission. Because the version of you that entered the storm could never carry the destiny waiting on the other side. So the storm stayed until the transformation started, until your voice became stronger than your fear, until your faith became louder than your doubt, until your identity became rooted deeper than opinions, outcomes, and circumstances. What tried to break you revealed your resilience. What tried to silence you revealed your voice. What tried to stop you revealed your momentum. You did not fall apart. You broke open. And now the strength you prayed for lives inside you. The wisdom you once searched for now guides you. The courage you once admired in others now breathes through you. You are not the same person who entered that battle. And that was always the point. Because the pressure was never sent to destroy you. It was sent to introduce you to yourself. You keep looking at the clock, at the calendar, at the years that moved faster than your plans, at the dreams that feel like they have been waiting and waiting and waiting. You have asked the question more times than you can count. Why is this taking so long? You watched others move ahead. You saw doors open for people who started after you. You celebrated milestones while quietly grieving your own silence. And slowly, the thought crept in, maybe I'm late. But listen to me. You were never late. You were being protected. Because what you call delay, I call defense. There were opportunities you begged for that would have buried your peace. There were relationships you prayed for that would have confused your identity. There were doors you knocked on that hid rooms you were never meant to enter. You saw the surface. I saw the outcome. You saw the promise. I saw the pressure it carried. You saw the open door. I saw what waited behind it. So I slowed the timeline, not to frustrate you, not to forget you, but to shield you. You thought time was being wasted, but time was being used. Used to grow your strength, used to deepen your wisdom, used to prepare your heart for what success would demand from it. Because blessings that arrive too early often leave too quickly. You asked for elevation before you understood the weight of responsibility. You asked for visibility before you understood the cost of attention. You asked for arrival before you understood the endurance required to remain. So I allowed the waiting. I allowed the pause. I allowed the season that felt slow and silent, not because nothing was happening, but because too much was happening beneath the surface. Growth does not always look like movement. Preparation does not always feel like progress. Protection does not always feel like love. Sometimes it feels like stillness. Sometimes it feels like frustration. Sometimes it feels like watching life move while you stand still. But stillness can be safety. You would have called it a blessing if I had given it to you sooner. But later you would have called it a burden. You would have celebrated the opportunity and then struggled to carry it. You would have welcomed the door and then wished you had time to grow into it. So I gave you time. Time to mature. Time to heal. Time to understand who you are without the pressure of who you are becoming. The delay was never empty. It was filled with unseen protection, with hidden lessons, with quiet strengthening. And one day soon, the timing will make sense in a way explanations never could. You will step into what you once begged for and realize you are finally ready to hold it without losing yourself. And you will understand this truth. Nothing was late. Everything was guarded. You have wondered if the pain had a limit, if the weight would ever lift, if the long nights would ever give way to a morning that felt different. You endured seasons that felt endless, battles that returned just when you thought they were over, moments when hope felt fragile in your hands. You asked quietly, "How much more can I take?" And the question carried a deeper fear. Will this ever mean something? Listen to me. Nothing you have suffered is wasted. Nothing you have carried has been ignored. Nothing you have endured has been small. Because the breakthrough waiting for you will match the depth of your suffering. The tears you cried in silence were not signs of weakness. They were evidence of endurance. They were proof that even when your strength felt thin, your spirit refused to quit. Every night you held yourself together, you were building capacity. Every time you stood up after being knocked down, you were building resilience. Every time you chose faith over fear, you were building momentum. You thought you were barely surviving, but you were expanding. Expanding your strength, expanding your faith, expanding your ability to carry what is coming. Because the size of the blessing must match the strength of the person receiving it. If the reward arrived too early, it would overwhelm you. If the breakthrough came too soon, it would outgrow you. So the process continued until your spirit could sustain the promise. Pain stretched you, pressure strengthened you, waiting deepened you. And depth is required for destiny. The world will one day see the breakthrough. They will celebrate the victory. They will admire the strength. But they will not see the nights you questioned everything. They will not feel the weight you carried in silence. They will not know the battles you fought alone. You know, and I know. And that is why the breakthrough will not be small. It will not be ordinary. It will not be temporary. It will be proportionate. Proportionate to the tears, to the patience, to the endurance, to the faith you held on to when giving up felt easier. You are closer than your exhaustion tells you, closer than your doubt suggests, closer than your circumstances reveal. The depth of your pain is not proof of abandonment. It is the measurement of the breakthrough approaching. You still remember the voices, the ones that questioned your dreams, the ones that laughed gently, then loudly, the ones that told you to be realistic, to be practical, to be smaller. Some of those voices came from strangers, some came from people you trusted, some came from people you loved. And the hardest ones to forget were the voices that sounded like your own. You replayed their words in quiet moments. You measured your progress against their doubt. You wondered if they were right, if you were aiming too high, if you were hoping too big, if you were believing in something that was never meant for you. Their doubt became noise, constant noise, loud noise. But listen carefully. Your destiny has a voice too, and it is louder. It has been whispering through your persistence. through the dreams you could not shake, through the pull you could not explain, through the feeling that your life was meant for something more. You tried to ignore it. You tried to silence it. You tried to convince yourself that settling would be easier, but the whisper never stopped. Because destiny does not disappear when doubted, it becomes louder when resisted. Every time someone told you you can't, something inside you refused to agree. Every time someone dismissed your vision, a deeper conviction rose quietly within you. You wondered why their doubt never fully convinced you. Because their voices were external, your calling is internal, and what lives within you will always outlast what speaks around you. You mistook opposition as proof you were unqualified, but opposition was confirmation that your path was different. Different paths invite different opinions. Different callings attract different resistance. You were not meant to blend in. You were not designed to echo the expectations placed around you. You were designed to move forward despite them. The voices of doubt spoke loudly in your past. They echoed in your present. They tried to shape your future. But they do not get the final word, because destiny speaks through persistence, through resilience, through the refusal to quit when quitting feels logical. Your destiny speaks every time you stand up again, every time you try again, every time you believe again. It speaks through the fire in your spirit that refuses to go out. One day, the same voices that doubted you will fall silent. Not because you fought them, not because you convinced them, but because your life will speak louder than their words ever did. You do not need to silence the doubt. You only need to keep moving toward the calling. Because the future prepared for you will make more noise than the fear that tried to stop you. And when that day comes, you will understand. The loudest voice in your story was never doubt. It was destiny calling your name. Something is starting to make sense now. The pieces that once felt scattered are beginning to form a pattern. The pain that felt random is starting to look intentional. The seasons that felt empty are revealing hidden movement. You are beginning to realize this was never chaos. This was preparation. Every delay slowed you down so you wouldn't miss the right door. Every closed path forced you onto the narrow one. Every heartbreak loosened your grip on what could not go with you. You thought life was taking from you, but life was making room. Room for strength, room for clarity, room for the version of you that could carry destiny without collapsing under its weight. Look back for a moment. See how you survived things you once believed would destroy you. See how you walked through storms you once thought would never end. See how you became stronger in places you thought you were breaking. That was not luck. That was unseen protection. There were moments you should have fallen apart, but didn't. Moments you should have lost hope, but something kept you breathing, moving, believing. Moments when giving up felt logical, but quitting never felt final. Because something was guarding you while you were growing. You were being strengthened quietly, built silently, positioned carefully, and now the realization is rising inside you. The pain had purpose, the waiting had direction, the battles had meaning, the silence had instruction. Nothing was wasted. Not the tears, not the confusion, not the loneliness, not the nights you questioned everything. It was all building toward this moment of awakening. This moment when you stop asking why me, and start asking what now, because the version of you that once begged for answers is becoming the version ready for activation. You can feel it, the shift, the urgency, the quiet fire waking up inside your chest. The sense that something is about to move, something is about to open, something is about to begin. This is what preparation feels like right before destiny moves. The pain was never the end of your story. It was the sound of destiny knocking. And now you are still here. After the battles, after the silence, after the nights you thought would never end. You are still breathing, still standing, still searching for meaning. Do you understand what that means? It means you were never abandoned, not once, not for a second, not in the moments you cried in secret, Not in the moments you smiled while breaking inside. Not in the moments you felt forgotten by the world. I never left. I was there in the doors that would not open. I was there in the tears that would not stop. I was there in the waiting that felt endless. Even when you could not feel me, I was guiding you. Even when you could not hear me, I was protecting you. Even when you could not see me, I was carrying you. You thought you were walking alone through the valley, but you were being led through it. Every step forward you took while exhausted, I saw it. Every time you chose hope when despair felt easier, I honored it. Every moment you refused to quit, I strengthened you. You were never invisible. Your faith was never unnoticed. Your endurance was never ignored. Your prayers were never unheard. You survived seasons that were meant to stop you. You endured storms that were meant to discourage you. You kept moving when standing still would have been easier. And now you are here. Stronger than you were, wiser than you were, closer than you realize. The story is not ending, it is shifting. This is the moment where survival turns into purpose, where preparation turns into movement, where waiting turns into stepping forward. Everything you went through has been building toward this. You are not the same person who started this journey. You carry resilience in your spirit, clarity in your heart, strength in your voice. You have been shaped by fire, but not destroyed by it, tested by pressure, but not crushed by it, challenged by life, but not defeated by it. And now it is time to rise, not in fear, not in doubt, not in hesitation, but in faith. Faith that the path ahead is real, faith that the doors will open, faith that the calling inside you was never a mistake. You do not need to understand every step to take the next one. You do not need every answer to move forward. You do not need permission to become who you were created to be. All you need is the courage to stand again. Stand after the heartbreak. Stand after the disappointment. Stand after the waiting. Stand knowing you were never alone. Stand knowing the silence had purpose. Stand knowing the battles had meaning. Stand knowing the delay had protection. Stand knowing your story is still unfolding. This is not the end of your journey. This is the beginning of your rising. So lift your head, steady your heart, take a breath, and step forward. Because the same hand that carried you through the darkness is now leading you into the light.